Welcome back to Rooted and Reaching. I'm your host, Marty Mecklenburg. Today we had a great conversation with Allie Shook, the Executive Director of Marshall County Lifelong Learning. Allie and I had a super conversation about how to support entrepreneurship and lifelong learning in rural parts of Indiana. Hope you enjoy the episode. Well, I am very happy to be here this morning with Allie Shook, the Executive Director of the Marshall County Lifelong Learning Network. I think I got that right.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Allie has been a friend of the region for a long time, and we've wanted to get her on the podcast for a while to talk about both how she supports entrepreneurship in Marshall County in particular, but also in the region. And then I'm going to poke her a little bit about whether or not she thinks she is an entrepreneur herself, since she's got her hands in so many great things that are starting new. So anyway, Allie, thank you for being on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
It's always nice to, not to be overly chronological, but to hear a little bit about you, where you came from. I know you're actually a Marshall County born and bred proponent and resident. Tell us about that. You started in Marshall and then you left and you came back.
Yeah. So born and bred, like you said, in Marshall County. Parents born and bred in Marshall County. A lot of family still there, and just had my sister and her husband actually just moved back. So we're very excited about that. But yeah, so grew up in Marshall County, went to Plymouth, graduated from Plymouth. I went to IU, and then came back for a teaching job after college. So I went to school for special education and health education, and so came back for a special ed job, and then have been here since. So,
did you, when you were away for school, was the intention always come back home to teach?
No, I mean, I thought I would. I thought I would teach. I actually went to school originally for broadcasting, if you can believe it. And then decided to change. I decided to change. I really loved it in high school, the broadcasting department and stuff and what we were doing. And so thought I wanted to go into that, and then ended up going into special ed. My mom and stepdad are both special ed teachers, so kind of grew up in it and just felt comfortable and appreciated that and had a passion for it. So did switch my major, went into that. And then I honestly thought I looked into doing some sort of kind of a Teach for America kind of situation and looked at different places. But at that point, they didn't want people with teaching degrees. So you didn't have access to that. But yeah, so kind of looked around and thought potentially going somewhere else. And then I ended up finishing school in December. And so was kind of in a what do I do kind of standpoint.
Sure.
And there was actually a maternity leave and a sick leave that both happened that spring. And so, of course, folks back here knew that I was finishing up. They were like, please come back and fill in. And of course, once you do, then you're good.
Next thing happened.
and then 20 years later, you go, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm still here. Yeah.
So did you come back to the same high school you graduated from?
Not to teach originally, no. I actually started in the two jobs that I filled in for were at elementary school in Marshall County and then at a junior high. And then I kind of worked my way around. I was at Argus High School, Culver High School, and junior high, and then went back to Lincoln, which is in Plymouth, and then kind of switch it up from there. But
it's always an interesting circumstance for a young teacher who comes back and they're only 4 or 5 years older than they even know kids who are in the school, younger sibling or.
Well, and that's I have lots of younger siblings, so I'm the oldest by 7 years. And then there's a whole bunch. My youngest sister is a sophomore at IU, so that tells you kind of the gap.
Big range.
So, but my brother was 7 years younger than me. Is 7 years younger than me, and so going back, his age group was in high school at the time, going back to teaching. So that was always interesting to say the least. But I was not at Plymouth High School, so I didn't have to worry about him and his friends.
So being from Marshall County, I mean, Marshall is a rural county. I think it self-identifies pretty strongly as rural Indiana. Sure. How was that? Did you see it that way too growing up?
I think so. Yes. I don't know that I guess I don't know that it was something that we really saw as a label, or that I really thought that we needed to maybe own, or that it was that's who we are kind of situation. It just is what it is, right? Or it just was, what we were at that point and still are pretty much. Being in Plymouth in Marshall County is kind of funny because Plymouth's kind of, the big city, quote unquote, inside of Marshall County.
Yep.
So going through school in Plymouth, I was part of the what you would maybe see as the city or the urban area. Even though, I mean, it's not urban, but that kind of feel. So there's
the biggest community in the
yeah,
county.
exactly. So it's just kind of that you feel that at each stage, I feel like, whether or not you're in a rural or urban area, or how you're connected suburban wise. And you just kind of you have to, as you're in it, and as you're feeling that, it just kind of depends on who you're talking to, right? Within the region where, it's feels that way, and we're definitely the rural county, right? But I don't know, I feel like Elkhart and South Bend or Elkhart and St. Joe have plenty of rural areas
Well,
too, right? So
exactly. I would make that point too. Like
yeah.
you drive around, it doesn't,
Yes. Yeah.
it's not like it happens at a county line, right?
Right.
You can be
Right.
in rural parts of St. Joe County, rural parts of Elkhart County.
Right.
And then when you're in downtown Plymouth,
Yes.
it
Exactly. Yeah.
feels like you're in a cute little town,
Right.
right? Which you
Exactly.
are.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a but yeah, there wasn't anything. I didn't feel. I guess it didn't feel that way to me. It doesn't necessarily feel that way now, other than from an amenity standpoint. Obviously, you're always, when you're in a smaller area or a smaller town, you don't have access to the same things.
Yeah.
But as we know in the region, you have a 20-minute drive, 30-minute drive to
Right.
whatever you might want to access.
Right.
And then easy access to Indy and Chicago, of course. So,
Right.
so yeah, so it makes it nice because you kind of have that. It's nice and quiet and
Yeah.
small and easy, and
Yeah.
and then we can go and get the other
You
stuff
can
if
get
we
the
want.
stuff if you
Yeah.
need it, right?
Yes,
If you need to
exactly.
hit Trader Joe's, it's there
Yes.
for
Yeah,
you.
yeah, you
There's
can.
Target.
Yeah.
There's
Yes.
yeah.
Costco's a little out of reach,
Yeah.
I feel like, but
Yeah.
but I do make the trip every once in a while.
So you were a teacher
Yes. Yeah.
for how many years?
About 10.
Roughly 10 years as a
Mhm.
teacher, and
Mhm.
then you moved into a new space.
Mhm. I've been in a couple different spaces since. So I was actually the rec director for the Plymouth Parks Department for
Oh,
a couple years.
I didn't know that.
And then I was the leader of people and partnerships at American Engineering
Yep.
in Argus. And then have been in this role for LLM
Yeah.
since. So
Was it an intentional choice? You'd been teaching for 10 years and you were thinking, I'm ready for something, a new challenge, a new opportunity? Or was it just something
yeah,
presented itself and you followed the path?
would say a little bit of both. At that time, teaching can be very hard, as the folks that teach know, or in the
Everybody's remembering this
education
week as
space,
kids go back
right?
to school. Yeah.
Yeah, in the education space, and doing what I was doing, and then doing what we were at the time fostering and doing some other work like that, and it was just I needed to make a change, just for purely like mental health purposes, right? And sometimes, um, it makes it kind of lends itself to that, like, where can I, what's out there. And I'll say too, from a teaching standpoint, inside of teaching and then wanting to do something else is very much a big question mark,
Mm,
because you're seen as you can be an educator,
yeah.
but you can't be anything else. And not that you can't, right?
Yeah.
That's not the right word, but there, in terms of applying for different jobs, every application says 3 to 5 years experience in X, Y, or Z, right? In education,
Uh-huh.
you can go, well, I taught for 10 years. I can explain to you what I just did
Right,
for
right,
10
right, right,
years
right.
and in this space, but that doesn't reflect on, well, you need business experience.
Right.
Well, you need, whatever kind of experience. So it's very hard to leave that space and find something new.
Feel like you get a little pigeonholed as an educator.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say, I mean, I'm very biased, obviously, in terms of education and
Yeah.
educators. But I would say that they are probably the best suited for going into a different role somewhere, because they can kind of roll with the punches and they're flexible and they know how to adapt and obviously know how to work with people.
Sure. Sure. You have
Which,
to, right?
yeah,
Part of the
yeah.
territory.
Right. And what we hear a lot,
Yeah.
even in the CTE space and some other, now, is that everyone lacks soft skills. And it's like you have the perfect candidates for soft skills, like the people who can talk all day to
Right.
pretty much anyone.
And if you can deal with teenagers all day, you can
Yeah,
probably deal with pretty much anything.
right. Or 25
Yeah.
5-year-olds. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
there's,
Yeah. Right.
there's something to,
Right.
herding cats, basically, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, and keeping it going and making sure everybody's leaving with new knowledge at the end of the day. So,
Did you
but yeah.
find that a lot of teachers had side hustles,
Well,
summertime
oh yeah, most I mean, I
things?
feel like that's a pretty. It maybe not as much necessarily now. I don't know for sure, but definitely when I was teaching, a lot of folks had a second job.
Yeah.
Whether or not that was in the evenings, on the weekends, or if it was, summer break at least,
Right.
they were doing something or teaching summer school or just
Right.
finding something to kind of supplement their income.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, everyone's dabbling in something else
Yeah.
likely. And since I've been out of education, the world in the Etsy world or the, kind of
Mhm.
that kind of world has come alive since then. So there's different avenues for folks to be
Right. Right.
creatives and
20 years ago, that
sell
wouldn't have been
things
much of
that
an option, but now
exactly.
now there's a pathway to sell online and yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So instead it was a lot of, waitressing or, doing things like that, but
Did you have a side hustle during your
I
teaching
yeah,
career?
I had many side hustles, yeah. I mean, in terms of I was waitressing or bartending,
Yeah.
and then, working at the park in the summer, mowing and doing that kind of stuff. So, um, yeah, lots of different random things of where you could just try to supplement a little bit
Yeah.
and, pay the bills.
Yeah. So so you were at American
Yeah.
and you were at what was the other one you just mentioned? The Parks
Before that, the
Department?
park, yeah, and then teaching, yeah.
And then how long have you been at the Marshall County Center for Lifelong Learning?
Yeah, so I've been there since April of 22. So I just went through my 3rd year. Yeah.
3rd year.
So, yeah, so
And did
which
those
is
other
kinda
2
crazy.
positions, the Parks Department and did that lead to this opportunity to lead
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Lifelong
I
Learning
think
Network, or was it a new network at the time, or did you
it's
take
not.
over for someone else?
Yeah, so I didn't take over for someone else, but it wasn't new either. So it had been in existence since 2001, 2002. But it was a working board for the majority of that time.
I see.
So
Yeah.
it was kind of a something to supplement and help classes within the vocational world and inside of adult basic education. Since then, vocational has changed into career and technical ed, so that's why we went from vocational to CTE.
Got it.
Um, and so those
Remind the
things,
audience,
yeah,
what does CTE stand for?
career and technical education.
Career and Technical Education.
Yeah. So, when I was in school, like building trades, automotive, things like that would have been considered vocational
Right.
classes, and now we just call them CTE. But yeah. So, getting into CTE, doing the work that I'm doing now, the work that what I have done in the past in terms of teaching, being at the park, being at American. Um, I think the job I'm in now is a really nice blend of all of those things.
It sure seems like it is, right? Because it's
Yeah.
very educational in nature and yet
Uh-huh.
rooted in
Kind of
business
business and
and
industry,
yeah,
yeah, for sure.
industry. Yeah.
A lot of relationships, relationship building, of course, and so I appreciate that side of things and being able to be out in the community and really kind of, chatting with folks and kind of, convening, groups that maybe are doing parallel work, and that don't know, that
Yeah.
that both are doing the work, and by being in the meetings that I'm in, or having the relationships that I do, I'm able to say, "Hey, wait,
Mhm.
I think this would be a good idea," where we can connect the dots a little bit, and by doing so, it's, I hope that we're fulfilling a role, filling a gap, that was not being filled, 3 years ago,
Mhm.
and the LLN board for a long time was doing good work, and was doing what they could do, but they just literally didn't have an executive director, so,
So what
um,
were they doing, and then what was the gap that your
having somebody that
position
can do it every day, right? Like, when you have somebody a paid person that can live and breathe it every day, things can get
huge
done.
difference, yeah, huge
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah, when you have, 10 to 15 people from industry, business, education that come together once a month or once a quarter
Yeah.
and talk about what's happening. Um, as most know, that's a lot of talking about what's happening and then okay, and then they see each other again in a month.
Executing becomes a problem without a
Yeah, the
full-time
action steps
yeah,
are just
yeah,
not. I mean,
yeah,
you can create them, you can try, but it's really hard when people can't. It can't be their daily
yeah.
work, right? And so having me in that role and being able to do it as a daily job, of course, we could get things done.
So what is that daily work?
Yeah.
Because I
So
think probably a lot of people don't know what the Marshall County
yeah,
say what's the
yeah.
acronym for it? The,
Marshall County LLN,
Marshall
Lifelong Learning
County
Network.
LLN.
Mhm.
Like, I'm even not 100% clear what the daily work looks like for you.
Right, right. I don't know that, most are other than
Yeah.
me and my board. Um, my daily work can consist of doing a podcast. My daily work can consist of, meeting with our employees who are some of our CTE teachers, in making sure that, what's going on in the classroom is what we want and making sure they have the materials that they need and those kind of things. working in close coordination with our CTE director. So North Central CTE is the CTE district that our Marshall County schools are in. And that includes both Marshall and Stark counties, and then LaVille or Union North schools, which kind of hovers in St. Joe County, and then Rochester and Fulton County, all are
all part
10,
of that same network.
Yeah, so there's 10 school corporations that all feed into that. With some of the classes that we, the courses that we kind of focus on the most are really public service related in a way. So one of the classes that we started a couple years ago was fire and rescue, and then last year we started the EMT class, which was the year 2 program of that course. So within CTE, you have year 1s and year 2s, juniors and seniors, and so you have to start, and then you can add the capstone. So with our fire and rescue had to come first, and then EMT as a secondary class for our seniors. Those kids are able to, in fire and rescue and EMT, earn every certification that they need in order to be hired on after graduation as a full-time firefighter, paramedic, or EMT
right out of high school.
Right out of high school at any local department. So we have a few that earned every single certification that they needed, and they're out and about now doing their thing, which has been awesome. But with bringing them up, the reason I brought them up is out of those 10 school corporations, we have most of those school corporations are in that class. Because there's certain classes that we provide in Marshall and Stark counties that are only offered in one location. So a lot of times, and not to get too in the weeds on this, but there's in Marshall and Stark counties, we have classes in Plymouth and Knox. We try to have dual programming so kids can access either one with whatever's closest. And then there's certain programs that just because of sheer numbers, maybe the equipment it needed and those kind of things, really only makes sense to have one section of that. So ours is in Marshall County, and then
that's
so we have
the
all those kids.
fire and rescue one.
Yeah,
and
fire and rescue
training.
and EMT. Yeah, which has been great. And then
how did you identify that as a need? Like, did it come up through surveys, or were you hearing from fire departments, hey, we need more young
So
employees?
So a little bit of both. We have, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of relationship building, that's where we really try to build a lot of our work out of, is having conversations with folks of what the heck do we need? What makes sense for Marshall County? What makes sense for the region? What makes sense for Northern Indiana? What makes sense for our, the Midwest? Those kind of things. And what can we set these kids up with? Give them access to be successful after high school, right? And not to mention too, is with adult basic education too, and adult ed that we are trying to offer the same things with adult ed as well.
I was
So we
ask
try
you about that because it's the adult. So I don't automatically think about high school students. You're mentioning juniors and seniors, but there's an adult component to this.
Yes, 100%. So out of all of those courses that we have, and all of the ones that are offered within CTE, which we maybe partner or help with, but we may not employ the teacher, but I work in close coordination with those that the classes that are inside of Marshall County Career Innovation Center, right? So that was our big project that LLN has done in the last few years, which was ready funded, of course.
Right, which we'll talk about in a minute here.
Yeah. So that, but the Career Innovation Center, those classes that are inside of there are ones that we try to help with, partner with, convene industry partners for, and those kind of things, source equipment, and whatever we can do to help. In those, the classes with inside of CT or inside of the Career Innovation Center are ones that we try to provide an adult version of as well. Sometimes that doesn't make sense. Sometimes it's not a need. Sometimes it's not something that adults are interested in. Or maybe isn't as helpful. So there may be a little bit of a twist in terms of what that looks like, of what the adult class looks like in comparison to the high school course. But yeah, really trying to fill needs, looking at all the statistics that Greg Hildebrandt right at EDC, Marshall County Economic Development folks, those guys can look at numbers and go, hey, we're really heavy here, we're really lacking here. And a lot of conversations like that happen that help us identify what we're doing and where we might need a target.
Can you tell us a quick story about an adult who benefited from the program? You don't have to use names, but who are you serving, and what kind of transformation is this making in their lives?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's numerous stories to be told from the classes so Jason Rivich is our adult ed director, and he's done phenomenal work in the last few years. He came on after me in terms of timing, so he's only been there for about 2 years now, I think, in terms of time at adult ed. But in that time, the amount of folks being able to access our programming it's gone bananas. And we have so many people involved now, and having folks being able to access that with whatever they need, right? So there are individuals, of course, and we've had some who have come in. We have ESL classes. We have folks that have come from all over the world. And what I love is in the hallway they have a big world map and stickers from where everyone is from. So just those things that can really see who's represented in those classes, and we broke those down into beginning, intermediate, and advanced courses within ESL, and can provide for all three, and that's been phenomenal for folks, and has led to jobs in terms of connecting folks with employers and those kind of things. So, and then on the other end of that, which can also be the same thing, is our GED courses. So folks can access
what are those?
Graduation equivalency diploma. So folks didn't get a high school diploma, they can get a GED.
They're coming back to get that. Yeah.
Coming back, to get that diploma. And so being able to access ESL and GED, maybe, depending. And then inside of that as well, then we offer some other courses. Jason offered a CNC course, so folks are able to come in for a machining course, welding course, and some others. And those are where you have individuals that are able to access that, get skilled up in a whichever program that they desire, and then are able to access industry within our area and secure jobs. And those are ones where there's industry partners that are connected. We've had folks that have had one of our ATAMCO, which is located in Argus. They have on-site ESL courses, and those are provided through Adult Ed. And those are things that, that's kind of barrier breaking, right, in terms of them being willing to host that on-site. And so that makes a big difference in people's lives. So
yeah, I was going to ask about that, and I still want to get a specific story, but like you have these great industry partners in Marshall County. You've got ITAMCO you just referenced, you've got Southwire. There's a surprising number of like very strong, robust industrial operations going on in Marshall County.
Sure.
Is it a chicken and egg question? Is it a person, say an adult, comes to you to get training because they know they have a job waiting for them at ITAMCO if they upskill or learn how to do the CNC routing? Or is it that they're at a point in their life where they just feel like they need to go back and learn a skill that will then hopefully lead to a job?
Yeah, so I think it's more the second, not the first, because if most employers, I can't speak for everybody, I don't know for sure, right? Some employers may go, oh, that's not true. But I would say if they've hired someone on, they may know somebody's a good person to have on staff, right? In terms of good person, good soft skills, shows up every day, willing to learn, willing to do what they need to do, but doesn't have this maintenance set of skills that we want them to have, or this CNC set of skills that we want them to have, then they may come to the class. But on the flip side of that, I think it's folks earning their GEDs, then accessing programming of one class or another, and then connecting the dots to, hey, here's this person, or they just feel more comfortable at work, right? Like there's folks that are in the classes that are maybe in the class from a quote unquote hobbyish kind of situation, right? And not necessarily that they're going to go home and do it, but it's more of a like, I would like to feel a little more comfortable doing this because I may get asked to do this at work, or I may need to access that, or this is something that I know that if I can do it, then I start to get looked at for.
Sure. So they're anticipating opportunities and the way that this education could maybe lead to those opportunities.
Yeah. And we hope, that continues. Our CNC class, we have both instructors that we had are both bilingual too. So just making sure that we're providing things where people feel comfortable being in there and they can speak the language, with them and make sure that they're getting what they need.
So you've mentioned ESL a number of times now.
Sure.
What's the landscape in Marshall County that you're facing when it comes to ESL and CTE courses and training?
Yeah, so that's within Marshall County. I don't know I'm not 100% sure what the total percentage is for Marshall County. I think it's in the teens. For the city of Plymouth, you're looking at close to 25 to 30% of the Hispanic population. Within there was at one point, I know within the schools, at 20%-ish, we're marking that they speak Spanish at home.
Yeah.
So knowing that the kids are going home, speaking Spanish at home, parents obviously still speaking Spanish, at home, and or are speaking Spanish, and so making sure that we're providing everything we possibly can in whatever language we need to, most likely Spanish in our area. It's most likely Spanish. And making sure that folks can access, the opportunities that we have, because we want to make sure that it's equitable, obviously, and that everybody has access.
You really couldn't do the work properly if you weren't providing those services.
No,
You'd be missing a big chunk of the population.
100%. Yeah, and we have no desire to do that, of course. So yeah.
So tell us a story.
I don't know. It's hard to pick one story. There have been, folks we've had, I was just thinking through with Jason he hosts his graduation in June. And so that just happened a couple months ago. I'm trying to if there's a specific story that he always tells stories about certain folks in his classes and what they've accessed, and what they can do. There was someone who went through the ESL program and then earned their citizenship during that same time. So being able to access that and do that was huge, obviously, for her. Connecting the dots from an employer standpoint and getting them I shouldn't say high paying, getting them a living wage job at local healthcare organizations. Again, not speaking specifically about a specific place. I don't want to name anybody, but getting them in contact with someone who went right through the ESL courses, beginning, intermediate, advanced, and then was able to access, a living wage job is huge, right? So, it really comes back to every individual and being able to connect the dots for them in whatever way we can and help them get to where we can get. The HVAC classes that Jason offers as well also come with a big toolbox at the end, and that really makes a big difference for folks, being able to leave and then go to get a job and having that huge set of tools that they need to access that employment afterwards. So being on the spot about coming up with a story.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
No, you're fine. I'm not good at story. There's just been so many that have gone through his work from an adult ed standpoint and been able to access, and he has done a phenomenal job of being that person that is there for them, that can get them. They keep coming back in terms of, okay, what's next? Or, okay, can you get me in touch with, this person or that person kind of thing. So it's just really been good, a good convening kind of situation where local industry and Jason and the schools and everybody can kind of come together and work together.
Yeah, that's great. So this podcast is mostly, we talk a lot about entrepreneurship, and we're either interviewing entrepreneurs or we're interviewing people who support entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
What's the relationship of your current work to entrepreneurship in Marshall County?
Yeah, so we've been working, again, I will say, in terms of the Career Center, that has really been front and center for LLN, right, in the last few years now. And we're really close to ribbon cutting here soon. And so that's kind of been our focus. Alongside that, been working closely with Marshall County Economic Development and Marian University and Silla College, and then our CTE program as well with North Central CTE, in terms of creating kind of an entrepreneurship pipeline in a way, and making sure that we're offering, same as we do, like I'm talking about with welding and others, that same type of idea. Are we offering entrepreneurship courses at the high school level, at the college, quote unquote, level with Marian, and then adult level with EDC.
Yeah.
So trying to figure out what's best for us has been interesting, to say the least, and kind of finding, weaving our way through that path, which has not been a straight line by any means. And making sure we're providing what folks really want and need to access. And also not I would not call myself an entrepreneur. I don't identify that at all. And I don't want to, just I will say, in coordination with our our automotive class that we're just starting, tell our automotive teacher, you tell me what you need. I do not know what tool you need, right?
Sure.
And so from an entrepreneurship lens, I think same thing, starting businesses, of course, we can recognize, we can identify what those things are, right?
Yeah.
In making sure folks have access to that and the resources for that. But then it's the kind of the course, quote unquote, work that goes around that. And identifying what that is in the curriculum that can help our kids in high school kind of understand, okay, if you really think you want to start a business, or maybe you already have one, right? I know we have one kid in entrepreneurship right now. We just started this fall. This was the first time we're offering it as a CTE course. So that just started in August.
Okay. So it's its own separate
course
that you can take.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, and it really should go in coordination with something else. So like a kid who just took welding can then take entrepreneurship. So there's a tie to a business a year 1 and then a year 2 as the entrepreneurship course. So connecting the dots there for them and getting that started this year was something that we've been working towards and wanted to make sure that we had. And then Marianne is offering their courses and Dr. Tucker out there is doing a great job getting those instituted out there. And then Greg, I know, has been working as well in terms of what do we do from a adult standpoint, right? And that's connecting to small business development center and having them come down and do some coursework and different classes, workshop-y kind of things. And then just kind of meeting people where they are, right? Like, there's no way to. I feel like it's kind of like with some of our classes as well. We had to just do it, and then does it make sense or not? Okay, well, let's tweak it or edit it in one way or another. And give people what they need. If we feel like everybody comes in, they're like, yeah, we know we have to do that. Like, then okay, we can start skipping that section and we start going on to the next. So it's really, I feel like one of those where we kind of just have to jump in, offer the stuff, and then go from there.
Sounds very entrepreneurial.
Yeah, right. Sure.
Well, I mean, right, trying new things,
Yes,
learning from failure. I mean, those are sort of traits of entrepreneurship as well. So
yeah, and I appreciate that, and I think that is. Education can certainly be in that field, right? In what we're doing from an education standpoint with kids and these courses that they're taking. And it has to be what looks different now than it did 10, 20 years ago, right? In terms of education is making sure that we're meeting kids where they are and then that we're helping them get to kind of a destination, right? And that destination is not a finish line, but where is that next point to then go to the next point, to the next point to create lifelong learners. And in doing that, I think it's always has to be, this works great right now, but maybe, like just with like automotive, we brought in automotive this year. This is the first time we're having automotive at the Career Center. And our kids have had to travel, Marshall County kids have had to travel to Stark County for the last 20 years for shop
automotive.
class. Yeah, for automotive. And so that was something that we really wanted to make sure was part of the Career Center build and having those kids be able to stay. Because we had kids, our Triton kids that come to our classes, they are, 10, 15 minutes to the east of Plymouth. And they're going to Knox, which is 20, 25 minutes west of Plymouth, right? So these kids are traveling a long ways. And you go past the slow time line, when you go that way. So that just adds another wrinkle, right?
Right.
So we really were focused.
A lot to balance,
Yeah, and for a high school kid too, like what, and I got to get back for practice, and and you're like, what time is it?
Right.
So trying to alleviate that issue, but with bringing in automotive, we're doing automotive technologies, but the idea is at some point we know we're likely to have to offer an EV piece of that, right? And whether or not it's its own pathway or whatever, but EVs are likely going to, who knows? I'm not going to predict the future by any means, but
they're out there on the road.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. So when you start to go over that hump of more than then internal combustion kind of engines. So you flip the switch and now we're doing more EV instead. Yeah. So it's just kind of recognizing that and knowing even from a welding standpoint, we've talked about that with like robotic welding and stuff too. Those are. Robotic welding is 100% out there. We know that. We know it's an industry. And when is the tipping point of when it makes sense for us economically to offer that? Because it obviously there's a higher cost to doing that. And when does that make sense? In terms of our offerings and our pathways and stuff. So yeah, I think in that way, it is entrepreneurial-ish, in that you have to. It has to be that. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. What works doesn't work, and let's go
you
from
have
there.
to do a little forecasting too, right?
Yeah.
You're looking at trends in industry, or because you want the students to be up to date on what's coming next, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to keep your eye on that.
Yeah, and that's when inside of like the advanced manufacturing space, our kids, we now have a share program for advanced manufacturing, and so that's something too that where we have our kids are working on things that I should not touch, but awesome for them, and and they're able to do that, and they we are getting some additional equipment, which we're very thankful for, and that's going to be things that are on they talk about the 4-axis, 5-axis systems and stuff, and it's again not something that I should talk about, but they're getting into that world. Maybe a lot of our industry is maybe in 2, maybe 3, but it's going to get to 4 and 5. We know where we're going, right?
Manufacturing 4.0.
Yeah, we know where we're going.
Yep.
Yeah, and so in seeing that, we need to train our kids, even train our adults, right? Like that there's no reason we don't have an advanced manufacturing adult ed course as well. And providing those for folks so they can level up and we'll make sure that they have the skills needed to enter the workforce in 5 years and, whatever that happens to be. So, training them on present day equipment to make sure that they are, or even future, I guess at this point, but
near future equipment.
To making sure that they're comfortable and familiar with that.
So in this effort, you've had there's a big change that's happened, right? You had a big opportunity here, which is the new center that's approaching ribbon cutting.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about how did it come together? What was your role in it, and where is it going?
Yeah. So we are very excited. We are getting close to our ribbon cutting. That'll happen in September, middle of September.
Awesome.
So we're very excited. It started pre-me at LLN, actually, when the first introduction of Ready was kind of coming online at that point.
Okay.
And so the pre-work had been done in terms of acknowledging, and that work was also done, so I will say, going back to Marshall County Crossroads, which is now 1MC, right?
Okay.
So that's kind of shifted and morphed into 1MC now. Back when we did Marshall County Crossroads, that was 2017, I feel like, if I'm remembering my head correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And that started the whole Stellar process. So at that time, rural counties had access to applying for Stellar. That was through Office of Community and Rural Affairs, and you could win lots of money to put towards all sorts of projects.
Okay.
And it was, from NDOT, it was from, Rural Health, it was from Okra, it was a lot of different state agencies were a part of that and are still. And so in that work, during Stellar, all the communities came together, and in the county and in the city and others, and everybody worked towards, what do we have? What do we hope we have? What do we need? Those kind of things. And developed a project list of lots of projects that you're familiar with now, likely. Were part of Stellar in one way or another, like the Reese Theater got some Stellar funding, I believe. Some of the trails and networks in Plymouth, in Culver, and the amphitheaters and things.
I love that too, because there are community generated project ideas.
Right? So there's all sorts of things that kind of culminated out of Stellar, and then there was a list of things that kind of what we also want to do, right? In identified needs. And one of the identified needs was there was no central training location in Marshall County for folks, no matter their age. There wasn't everything was kind of hit or miss and kind of all over the place, and just not a central location. And so we identified that we really wanted to do that. Now, the work that was done in terms of identifying what we wanted to do came from, we want to build a building, we wanted to have our own center, and then got insanely high price tags for what that would cost. And so we came back to the drawing board and we said, okay, what could we do instead?
Also very entrepreneurial.
How do we solve this need? How do we solve this need without having to come up with $30 million? Because that's never going to happen. Like, we just, it was like that is crazy to think that we would get there where, let's make it more attainable. And so we came back to the table and had lots of conversations, and our shared programming, some of our shared programming that was existing at the time was already happening at Plymouth High School.
Okay.
And so it was recognizing, okay, we already have buses from all over Marshall County coming to one central location for a few classes, right?
Makes sense.
At that time, it wasn't very many, but there was a few, and so all those schools were coming in, and so it was like, okay, why wouldn't we do it right here? Like, it just makes sense, right? We can build out, we can renovate, we can rehabilitate, we can build new if we had to add on, and recognize, that we had something that would make sense. And Plymouth Community Schools was very willing to work in that, be a partner in that, and all of our other schools, all the Marshall County schools. We had letters of support from everybody. They all recognized that it made sense too.
Plymouth
and that
is centrally located.
Yeah, everybody's
in the
driving
county,
10 to 15 minutes, right?
So
So, we could put it somewhere else, and it was like, we can, that's fine. But if we do, then someone's going to have a 30-minute drive and somebody else is going to have a 5-minute drive.
Right.
Here, everybody drives 10 to 15 minutes. So it just made sense, I think, logistically. And the bus routes were already doing it.
Right.
So it was just kind of one of those, like, I had to come up with something new. And so we made do with what we had. We pushed the limits a little bit in terms of, what we were doing, and really tried to do everything that we did everything we could possibly do with what we had access to. And that was, I get to go and talk about it a lot, and kind of be, I guess, I don't want to say the face of it, because I don't want to be the face. I don't want to be the face of it, but be the person that goes out and shares the stories about it, right?
Yeah.
But it was a collective effort by a whole bunch of people, right? Now I could live and breathe it every day, like I said earlier, right? Like that was part of the, having an executive director that could live it and breathe it. But there were so many others that had to play along with us, right, in terms of making it make sense, and even from a financing standpoint, in terms of those that donated to the project, getting ready funding.
So let's back up there. So this was happening. It was at Plymouth High School. You were using some existing spaces, and then how does the ready money come into it?
Yeah, so we applied for Ready in August of 22 is when that was due, the first round. And so applied or I don't know, I don't remember when the actual due date was, but I believe it was August. And then found out in September, I believe. They announced at the meeting that we were Ready funded. And so then it was, let's go. Now,
what has that allowed you to do that you weren't doing before?
Yeah.
Like what is this new project going to allow you to do once it's officially open in September?
Well, yeah. So a lot of the existing space inside is it's open and being used right now.
Yeah.
The space that's finishing up this week, like literally, I think we're going to have access to the classroom tomorrow.
Okay.
And then access to the bay on Friday for automotive, and that's for automotive. And so that's the brand new building that we were able to put in the service. So everything that surrounds that parking lot basically has something to do with the Career Center, and the classes that are a part of that. Before, with this project, we were able to build out lots of classes, adding capacities, adding numbers of kids that could actually access the course. Not to mention automotive, we have 40 kids in automotive now in Marshall County that would have been 0 last year. Like, they would have been going to Stark County, of course, not all 40, because there weren't enough.
Over to Knox, but that would have been that's a transportation
issue, and not everybody necessarily could have gotten into that class because of capacities. So you only had one option for them, and so now providing that option in Marshall County is huge. So there are things like vet science was one of the classrooms we were able to renovate, and so Shannon Verhage is our teacher for that. She was able to take a half-day course. Now it's a full-day course, so she has a morning and an afternoon. So that's a plus 25 in terms of kids accessing that course.
So just more kids, more adults as well.
Yes, more adults as well.
Accessing this center, and more classes, more opportunity.
Yeah, 100%. And so what we would consider the Career Innovation Center from a project build standpoint is that which leans on that parking lot, right? But a part of our Career Center also includes kind of a Career Center South, is what we would call it, and that's Lincoln Ed Center. And that's where our health careers courses are happening: CCMA, criminal justice, entrepreneurship, and some others. And so those are all, fire and rescue and EMT meet there as well sometimes. And so those are all happening at another location. And we were able to take health careers, move it over to Lincoln Ed Center, freeze up space at the high school in order to put in another course there. So it just provided us opportunity that we never would have had.
So it does seem fair to say probably that the work you did leading up to this opportunity laid the groundwork for the creation of the new center.
Yes, yeah,
right?
like in terms of my jobs before,
well,
like my experience.
Before, and you and your partner's jobs before.
Yes.
And so that kind of is leading me to a question about leadership, like the leadership in Marshall County, including yourself, in the years preceding, the build of this new project. I think we laid some critical groundwork, right, in both building partnerships, around the county with the schools, with industry. Leadership is a big part of what you've been involved in too. So tell me about the role of leadership in making something like this happen.
Yeah, I think you have to own it. You have to believe it. You have to dream it. And when you do those things, then you can hopefully make things happen, right? And and I think something with leadership is knowing that sometimes you can't, and that's just as hard sometimes. Of like, I can go out and push this all day long, and I can go and like, let's pound the pavement kind of situation, right? But then knowing on the backside of that you can pound the pavement and people can still look at you and go, sorry, no, And then it's just taking that, tweaking it, and finding a different route, right? And continuing to try to get to that point in which you want or need to access, right, in order to be able to make something happen. And so, I think it's it really comes back to drive, and continuing.
Perseverance has been an important part of
Yeah,
this.
of course, yeah. I mean, there were times where it's like it was knocking me around a little bit. And, and it's one of those where it is what it is, right? It's when you're in a position, when you're in positions, I feel like that, sometimes you have to, you have to just take it. You're going to get, knocked down sometimes, or, hit around a little bit, and just get back up and keep going, and know that, it's for the good of the group, right? Like, I mean, this is one of those things where, I have no problem speaking to anyone about the Career Center, and talking about what we're offering, and what we've been able to do in the last few years, and what that money has generated, right, in terms of access and programming, and knowing that it's for the good of it's for the good of the city, it's for the good of the county, it's for the good of the region, it's for the good of, I mean, Northern Indiana. It's
Sure.
like, I just, the benefit of it is too great to not be passionate about it. And
it certainly does help to truly believe in what you're working on.
100%.
Right?
Yes.
Truly believe it.
It makes it a lot easier, right?
I also know too, so, back on a little bit of a personal note, like you put your money where your mouth is in terms of your own life as well, like lifelong learning.
Yeah.
I would assume you consider yourself a lifelong learner.
Yes, I do.
And you've done some things over the last few years. You've moved into new positions, but you've also gained more education for yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
I think you were at Purdue, and you've taken some additional classes.
I don't know if I say that out loud very often, being an IU grad, but yes, I know.
And
it's a hard place.
And you're in Notre Dame country, so
I know,
it's a triple threat here.
Yes, I'm working on, I have a class left, an educational leadership and policy studies degree. It was one of those things where at this point in my life, I felt like I was getting just too old, to not have done it yet. And
It's a motivator, I suppose.
I know. To a point where it was just like, I kept thinking I wanted to do it. Money always kind of became the issue of like, just one more thing to like, I just, and it, for me, I guess in terms of leadership, it just felt like if I'm gonna be in these roles, then, I should have the degrees to back it up, I guess, and I don't know that that's really necessary. I think that's one of those things where it's like depends on where you are and what you're doing, and, those kind of things. And it was just like literally for me, because of that was very much a personal choice, that no one told me I needed to do it. Very much a personal choice in terms of the folks that I was sitting around the tables with. I felt like, I wanted to know that I had that. And so very much a personal decision. And
it gives you a great story to tell about your own lifelong learning journey, right? With students or adults, whoever industry that you're working with.
It's doable. So, we were driving my girls to school this morning, and my youngest was like, I'm going to go to college. I'm like, okay, that's fine. What are you going to go for? And she's 8. What are you going to go for? I don't know. I'm going to do, just naming random things. Well, is it far away? I said, well, it can be far away. Or I said, like I have to do my work on the computer. I told her, how to do my work on the computer sometimes, because, they'll see me working on the class stuff sometimes. And how, like, you can just stay home and do it too. Like, you don't have to go somewhere. So they're okay. Like, kind of what are my options here? So, but yeah, I mean, I think it's always good I'm very much a tinkerer at the house, like building things and doing those kind of things, like with my hands, and have renovated our house pretty much top to bottom, and gutted it. So I think there's things like that give me pleasure in terms of like making me think.
For you,
yes, I will say I do get frustrated at times doing it, but
you have an older home.
Yes, it's it was it's a 1970s-ish house, so it's not it's not terribly old, but
still, there's never a lack of a project, I imagine.
Oh no, it's just home ownership, right?
Exactly.
But yes, have really had to gut it and start over, and so just it's a lot. But
so you've got ribbon cutting coming up in September. You're closing in on finishing your master's degree.
Yes.
What's next?
Gosh, I don't know.
What's next for you? What's next for Marshall County?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, right now we've had these kind of conversations about from a career center standpoint, have had conversations about, what is next. And from a
Sure.
strategic planning standpoint too,
Right.
we had done some strategic planning work back in 22, like a 22 to 25 situation. And so we started that process in 24 of looking back and saying, okay, what did we hit?
Yeah.
What really doesn't make sense for us, because at that point, and they had started that work before I came on board. So it was kind of identifying what they thought maybe they wanted to do, but not 100% sure that it made sense. And so in the time that I've been there now, we've been able to kind of, that's really not in our lane, or, we've been really good at
You're
focusing on
refining that. Yeah,
yeah,
refining it. Yeah.
yeah, and making sure that, what we can do well. And so with the Career Center project, like I said, that was a lot. And it was, what kind of did a lot of every day. And so hitting the point of ribbon cutting and kind of coming on the back end of that, right, is now being able to focus on doing what we do and doing it well. And so not necessarily bringing on more programming. We will if it makes sense, right? So if we see a need with kids or adults, and what we haven't talked about at all today is and what I do want to mention is we do work with workforce development as well, and we do work with Purdue MEP and offering courses for folks that are in industry already, and industry sends folks to those. So it's important for us to offer those public courses for them.
That's great.
Because a lot of times, like a smaller business, we talking like an American, it doesn't make sense for them to spend, $5 to $10 to have somebody come in and train somebody on OSHA and the one person that they need to have trained in OSHA, right?
It makes more sense for them to send somebody
$1,000 and send them to a public course, right? And that's kind of the case across the board, right? In terms of any of the industry and in kind of those just one-offs or two-off people, that they have in their locations. So working in workforce development, and I think we've been working with them and identifying more leadership opportunities, especially because throughout COVID, a lot of people got switched around inside of their locations of work, and maybe ended up in spaces that they either weren't ready for, or just hadn't been trained for, or just really are needing some additional knowledge in that world.
Okay.
And so providing some leadership courses for them to send folks to, like,
so this
hey,
gives them the opportunity to kind of get up to where they feel like they need to be.
Yeah,
and
giving the people the feeling of being in that course and going, okay, that not crazy for thinking that I needed to do that, or that's a really great option for how I handle that situation or discussion, or
that makes a lot of sense.
Having hard conversations, right? And so training folks in that. So I guess with all that to say, our work now is really identifying who we are, and really owning that, and then really refining that. So really making it better. And those are the courses that, like, even from a building trade standpoint, others, like, really focusing in on how do we hit the mark with these kids and adults, and making sure that we're providing exactly what they need, connecting to the right industry, connecting to the right partners, and making sure that they have access to whatever they need to have access to, right? And that's changes every day.
That is fantastic. I am sure Marshall County is grateful to have you in this
Depends
role,
on who you ask.
connecting those dots and making those connections. Well,
Yeah.
no, I mean, it makes a big difference.
Yeah,
Like you say, you're not duplicating services. You're kind of
No,
aware of what's going on. You can make the right connection. I imagine the networking piece is as important as anything else in all of this,
100%,
right?
yeah.
You're introducing people to this,
Yes.
huge deal.
Yeah.
So before we go,
Yes.
a little, and again, on the personal note, or on the Marshall County personal note, tell us a hidden gem or two in Marshall County that maybe we need to know
Oh my.
about, or a place that we should visit, or even just your favorite
Yeah.
restaurant, or your favorite outing.
Sure. So, this is going to seem Plymouth-centric, but remember that I live there, right? So, in terms of speaking of Marshall County, now I will
Totally
say,
fine. Yeah.
Lake Max is great, right, in Culver, and going there to the beach, going down to have dinner and hanging out down there is fantastic. That is a great evening. From a Plymouth perspective, my kids and I go and ride our bikes on the trails all the time in the park, and then my kids and I do too, but they love Opie's downtown, Opie's Deli. So they like literally choose that for dinner, the birthday dinner. Like, we're gonna go for your birthday, Opie's Deli.
Deli,
Like,
just like
yeah. It's automatic. They love the pretzels and cheese, the grilled cheese. I cannot make a grilled cheese at home that satisfies their Opie's deli need.
You got a pretty high standard.
Yes, they do it unlike me. So those are things that we like from a family standpoint really love to do. And then I will say, they're very well attended normally, and in the month of July and August, there's Mayor's Month of Music. It's now the Mayor's Summer of Music. It used to be Month of Music because it's just August.
Right.
Now it's July and August. So now
it's the Summer of Music.
Summer of Music. And that's every Friday night at River Park Square, which is downtown, the park right behind the main drag of Michigan Street. And at RPS, they have a band every Friday night at 7:00, and there's food trucks, 5 to 10 food trucks there.
Wow.
And a band and bands of all sorts.
So every Friday night.
Every Friday night.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just like we enjoy it because it's kind of it's free. You can BYOB, like it's just come down, hang out, have some dinner. If you want food truck wise, or even grab stuff downtown and bring it down. But it's just a nice kind of casual go and hang out. Doesn't matter. You're not paying, to be there kind of thing. So you can kind of come and go as you please.
Well, it's one of the beauties of living in a small Midwestern town.
Yeah.
Like being able to do things like that.
Yeah.
Like sense of community, beautiful summer evening, listening 100%. To the music. Like it really doesn't get much better.
No, it doesn't. It's really nice because my kids can go and they can ride their bikes out there's a trail now that they finished the trail. It's one of the other projects from Stellar that was just finished this past year. And so the trail now goes along the river back there. And so they just they can ride their bikes the whole time and, just kind of do that. And we can go and socialize. So it's a nice little Friday night event. So July and August, every Friday night.
There's still a chance to go.
There's still a chance. Yeah. They actually go into
left. Yeah.
I don't know what the date is this year, but they actually go to the Friday of Labor Day weekend. I don't know if that's September or not, but they actually go to that.
Maybe is like the last day of
August, they go to that,
like
that Friday of Labor Day weekend. So
anyway, Allie, thank you so much for joining us today. This is great to talk to you. Great to hear a little bit more about what's happening in Marshall County, especially around that CTE space, that career and technical education and lifelong learning.
Yeah.
And I love that you're a lifelong learner too.
I'm going to keep trying.
Inspiring all of us to keep thinking about what's next.
Yeah. Thank you.